My name is Ben Vieira, Benvieira. The first thing that comes to my mind when I think of art is, creativity. And I don't think there's one specific way of saying what art is. I think there's just different forms and mediums in which you choose to express like your creative sides and tell whatever story or do whatever you want to do in those different sort of mediums. I think that if I had to make some sort of artistic creation above anything else, I would want to make a documentary. I major in history, so I enjoy a lot of like the deep digging and finding like these different little tidbits and facts about stuff that I find interesting. Like there was just one day where I was reading about how Ghostface Killah made Supreme Clientele, that he actually he had some medical issues and he went to Africa to treat them. And he did a lot of the writing for that album while he was there. And then he came back and it gave him this whole new perspective on stuff. Like, I forget exactly what the quote was, but he was like, they may not have everything, they may not have, all the expensive clothes or whatever or whatnot, but it's community, it's family, like taking care of one another. And he said that really changed his outlook on stuff, and that really influenced him a lot in making that album. So I find stuff like that really interesting. I find like different social movements of the 20th and the 21st century interesting, like decolonization and how people mass mobilized in order to get their freedom and their rights. So I think that I would want to make a bunch of different documentaries around stuff that interests me. Art to me specifically, I think throughout my life there have been so many different forms of art that have resonated with me for different reasons. Obviously music. I think that there's music out there and artists that resonate with everyone for a different reason. Whether like there was a specific song that reminds you of like, times you hang out with your friends, or like, if you're feeling down, you turn something on that sort of says how you feel. For me personally, like wrestling, like I always enjoyed it because of the creative storytelling aspect of it. So yeah, I think art just kind of it's something that's just always been there in my life through different forms. I think there are a lot of connections that nature has with art. Obviously it's the inspiration behind a lot of famous pieces. Yeah, I think there is. I think when people make connections to like say somewhere that they live or somewhere that they've been, what's their history, or like the history of how they ended up, not how they ended up becoming an artist, but how like different points in people's lives affect them differently, and how they express that onto their art, whatever form that may be. Like I think as technology advances, there'll it's like with everything. As technology advances, there will be inevitably have different forms and mediums come, whether it's like a different technique in production that someone chooses to use, or like in cinema, whether it's coming up with different ways to get a shot or a better picture or whatever. I think that's how it's going to continue to change. I don't know, I think like the essentials will still always be there. Like sampling, for instance, has existed in hip hop forever, as long as it's existed. But yeah, things will it's gonna evolve, and some things will be beneficial to those forms, and we'll see them carry on further and further as they're used. But there will be some things that people try, maybe it won't stick, maybe it won't. That's how I think it'll change over time. I think I've grown to appreciate art a lot more now that I've gotten older. And I don't think that's to say that like I didn't like it as a kid, because I think, like I said, there's like art that always sticks with you throughout your life. But I think like as I've gotten older and as I've sort of expanded the different mediums, of art that I consume, like, getting into movies or like music, like, you know, when I was younger, comic books, like, whatever it is, I think I've gained more of an appreciation for like the depth of it, and I think also gaining more of an appreciation for like the people who are actually behind the art that's being put out, and like learning about their backstories and how that influenced what they do. So yeah, that's what I would say. We all have like interests that really pique to us, and I love when you get to learn about all these people's different backstories and like where they're from, what brought them to the point that they're at. And I think that there's a lot of stories out there that justly deserve to get attention that they never had before, or deserve to have even more attention than that they don't get now. So that's the stuff that I would want to focus on.